It's a presidential promise that could shake up races for Congress here in Texas.
The first bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade.
It could be key to determining the balance of power in Washington, but will Texas voters respond to the appeal for abortion rights? We dig deeper into what issues are driving Texans at the polls. Is $4 gas coming back to your gas pump?
If OPEC members honor their quotas, this would probably mean higher oil prices at the pump and more inflation.
How a plan to cut oil production could affect the Texas economy, and the response that could keep you from paying more when you fill up. Plus, you'll have the chance to weigh in on who should be in charge of regulating Texas oil and gas. We're breaking down the race for Railroad Commissioner.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Early voting starts tomorrow, and Texas Democrats are hoping backlash from the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade will motivate voters to go to the polls. This week, President Biden made a promise that could raise the stakes ahead of the election. Our Will DuPree takes a look at how that might affect races for Congress here in Texas that could swing the balance of power in Washington.
Anger over abortion restrictions spilled onto the streets of Austin this summer, and now,
If you care about the right to choose, then you got to vote.
this week, President Biden pledged to Democrats what he would do if these same protesters marched to the polls.
Here's the promise I make to you and the American people. The first bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade.
Delivering on that promise may depend on what happens in South Texas.
The federal government getting involved in abortion access is essential, and it is motivating for people in the state of Texas because they want access back right now.
Republicans are eyeing these 3 congressional districts as part of their path to retake the majority. Abortion opponents say Biden's proposal could potentially play into the GOP's favor.
There are some major issues going on in our country right now. It's just showing even further how out of step Biden is, and so many of the Democrats are, when they just keep trying to make abortion the main thing that they're running on.
The latest Marist poll showed Texas voters placed inflation and preserving democracy above abortion as the most important issues in the state. Political experts say this suggests the Democrats' messaging should not focus solely on abortion protections 3 weeks ahead of the election.
The abortion issue obviously is a major mobilizer to certain demographics, but those demographics don't come close to making up a majority of the electorate.
Will DuPree, State of Texas.
With early voting just hours away in Texas, we wanted to dive deeper into how important a factor the battle over abortion access could be in the election. For insight, we're joined by Jim Henson, director of the Texas Politics Project at the University of Texas. Welcome.
Great to be back, Josh.
Well, the project just completed a new poll looking at the issues most important to likely Texas voters. What came out on top, and where did abortion fit in that list?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that immigration and border security, the perennial front runner in our most important problem series, comes out in top when we ask what people are thinking about going into the election. That's driven primarily by Republicans, 60% of whom say it's the most important issue for them. Abortion runs third in the overall group of likely voters, behind immigration and border security and the economy. It's first among Democrats, though, but not in an overwhelming way. I just said that we have 60% of Republicans citing immigration and border security. The number one result among Democrats, abortion, is only 26%. So you have to add up the top 3 Democratic responses to get even close to that 60%. Makes it easier for Republicans to talk to their voters.
Well, Texas Republicans have been predicting they'll gain a few congressional seats in the election. You also asked voters in general whether they prefer Democrats or Republicans when it comes to their member of Congress. What did those numbers show?
Yeah, what we call the generic congressional ballot. We just say, hey, are you going to vote for a Republican or a Democrat in the race for the House of Representatives in your district? That looks pretty close at the aggregate level, and that Republicans only have a 2-point advantage. I don't know that translates directly, given redistricting, given the way that districts are gerrymandered. I wouldn't translate that directly to these big competitive congressional seats that we're seeing, mostly in South Texas. Those seats tend to have their own dynamic. So I think as we think about that, we have to think about what is the national dynamic going to look like? how much is that going to give Republicans a boost in these areas in addition to the boost they've already gotten from having drawn the district lines?
Yeah, a lot of factors there. Of course, you also asked voters about the top races in Texas. What's the outlook for Beto O'Rourke as he challenges Governor Abbott?
Well, this was the first time that we switched from our registered voter poll to our likely voter pool, which is a smaller group of voters that we judge as more likely to vote. So you're trying to approximate the electorate. We found Governor Abbott with an 11-point lead, 54-43 over Beto O'Rourke. That's one of the higher sort of margins that we've seen in a while. I expect that race will continue to move. But as pollsters have moved to their likely voter samples, it's been trending in a direction where that race is seeming to open up a little bit as we get closer to Election Day.
Now we have a rematch in the race for Lieutenant Governor. Mike Collier got close to Dan Patrick 4 years ago. What about this time?
Right now, we found about a 15-point gap in that race, and I think so. We've got Patrick at 51, Collier at 36. Again, I expect there will be a little more movement in that race, but I think when you compare the 2018 race to this 2022 race, what you really bring up in that comparison is just how good a year 2018 was for Democrats and just how bad a year 2022 is shaping up to be.
Well, a few weeks back, we saw polls showing a close race for Attorney General. Is Rochelle Garza gaining any ground in her challenge to incumbent Ken Paxton?
It just doesn't look like it in the numbers that we've seen. Now, again, our numbers, we found pretty big gaps this time, and we always wonder, is that a factor of timing? Is it just the draw we got? We can resort to the cliche of it's a snapshot in time. But it does seem like these races are beginning to look more like normal races. I think you and I talked about this the last time we were together. Summer was good for the Democrats, and it seemed like things were changing. In the fall, both in Texas and nationally, we're seeing kind of something like a reversion to what we expected going in. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of these races.
All right. Some things to look forward to in the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time.
Thank you very much, Jim Henson from the Texas Politics Project.
It's a state agency that faced scrutiny and criticism after the deadly winter storm. Now, Texas voters will have their say about one of the leaders of the Texas Railroad Commission. We look closer at the race and hear from the candidates next. Plus, thousands of Texas troops are on the hook for a mistake they didn't make, and it could cost them hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The new calls for accountability amid Operation Lone Star. Cost concerns drive a new effort to push down the price you pay at the gas pump. We look closer at the global forces causing cost concerns for Texas drivers.